Hey, it's Doug from the Rise Up Gym channel, and I'm going to show you how to master the technique of my favorite single leg exercise, the single leg RDL or single leg Romanian deadlift. Let's check it out. If you've ever worked out in my gym, either in a class or as an athlete, you know the single leg RDL is one of my favorite leg exercises, and especially single leg exercise. The reason being, it is simple to learn but not easy to do, so I generally like to gravitate towards exercises like that. It does not put a lot of stress on the joints. So unlike a squat with a barbell on the back, compression of the spine, even a deadlift, there could be some spinal compression lower down. This one doesn't tend to put a lot of pressure even on the knee joint because we're hinging at the hip. The third is the hinge. So we like the hinge movement for basic balance and athletics, but we're hinging back. This helps for running, jumping, power production, especially horizontally. So the hinge motion is trained here. And also, like I said, balance and strength go up immensely when you do this exercise. Now I'm going to give you some tips to help you make this exercise better, because I see people doing it a lot and I think they can get a little bit more out of it just by adding these little tips, and hopefully this will help you out with those. The first tip we're going to do is you want to make sure that you're hinging properly. So when we're doing this exercise, we're going to be staying on one leg. Now there's a two-leg version with a barbell. I recommend everybody doing that as well to learn it. But the hinge is going to be, if I'm karate chopping my hips here, I'm basically just pushing straight back, following the natural movement of my hips. There is no descent downward with this one. So I'm bending the knee slightly. There is a stiff leg version, but I'm going to go over a bent knee version with this. And we're going to push back, and we're just hinging at the hips. So I'm loading straight down, but pushing back, and that's where the balance comes into play. And one of the best ways to train this is using two arms on one weight. So whether you use a dumbbell or a kettlebell, I'm going to use a kettlebell. Dumbbell, you'll probably have to hold one in each hand. But a kettlebell I like because I can use this upright handle to hold with two hands and keep it on the one side I'm working on. Now I'm going to stand on my left leg and I'm going to hold with two hands, and I'm just going to push back. So the two hands gives me a little bit more stability, and I can really learn to push and hinge my hip back. Now the ultimate goal is obviously to kind of go to one hand. Now, when we go to the one hand, I prefer, if I'm going to work my left leg here, to hold in the opposite hand. So the leg that goes back is the side I'm holding. Sometimes I see holding on the same side, which can work, but what happens is there's more of a tendency to open the hip and drop the shoulder on the side and rotate the body, which we really don't want to do. When I counter hold on the opposite side, I'll have a tendency to be a little more square in my body, and I'm directly training straight down movement versus rotating and kind of sending my energy into a different direction. So when you're doing the single leg RDL with one weight and one side, hold on the opposite side. The next thing I see being an issue is a loose grip. So when we're doing the movement, if we're just grabbing very loosely and we're focused so much on our leg, one, it's going to cause a lot of imbalance here. So if I'm holding just in my fingertips and I'm doing the movement, my shoulder's not in place, I'm going to be a little bit loose in the torso and core. I want to activate everything. So this movement should be all interconnected with some type of tension that's activated by the grip. So I'm going to grip strong as if I'm breaking the handle, and then I'm going to do my hinge. So everything is balanced, and then I come up nice and strong. Again, if I'm loose in the hand, I can still do it, but I definitely feel a little bit more wobbly when I do. Now the tip two is, if I'm doing and creating all this tension, I also want to make sure that when I come back up, I relax for a second. It's hard to stay on tension for that long. You want to relax your grip, and then before you do your next rep, re-tension your body with the grip, and then move on to the next rep for however many reps you're doing. Next, we're going to talk about the feet a little bit. So there is a tendency sometimes when we're doing this movement for this foot, active foot, to pop up, to counterbalance. So when we're going down, I exaggerated a lot there by lifting my toe, but there's a little counterbalance to go on the outside edge of the foot to maintain balance. We want to try to keep our big toe down. So if this is my foot, what I'm going to do is I'm going to screw it into the ground by just creating a little bit of inward torque. And that's going to keep my big toe down so I do not compensate with counterbalancing. Again, so counterbalance, I'm going to see if my foot kind of wants to roll out a little bit when I do it. Now I'm going to screw my foot into the ground. I'll turn this way a little bit. So I'm going to screw into the ground, making sure my big toe stays down, and especially on the way up, I want to push through my foot and big toe. So keep your foot solid in the ground when you're doing this. And much like the grip, you can relax in between when you're coming back up and then kind of recreate that torque through that foot. As we talked about earlier with the technique portion of it, we want to hinge and reach back. So when we're doing this motion, we're not dropping the hip downward. That is a totally different exercise. It's a good exercise, but it's a totally different one. We want to hinge more. So karate chop, I want to reach back with that rear leg as I descend downward. People ask me how low should I go? So what I want you to think about when you're doing this exercise is not low, going low, like I got to get to the floor and my focus is here. My focus is on reaching back. So when I get this weight going, I'm setting up, so I'm gripping, screwing my foot in the ground, hinging. All I'm thinking about is reaching my heel behind me. Now, I feel a stretch in my hamstring, so it's about low to mid shin. That is good for me, and then I come back up. So my goal too is not to go all the way to the floor. My goal is to have a nice controlled descent. Ideally, I'm in this T motion, T position with my body, and then I come back up. Now, you may not get there right away. I want you to go as low until you feel a stretch in your hamstring. Now, if the weight's too heavy, go a little lighter, and then keep descending back. But we're trying to aim for this zone right here, probably right before the foot, where we're in this T position. That is a good goal to aim for. And then you know you have a good single leg RDL position when you do that. Next tip, we're going to talk about the descent and then coming back up. We touched on the descent a little bit in that last portion. I don't want to descend quickly and fast like a dropping stone. So I want to screw my foot in, grip, reach back. I want a nice slow descent. If you feel yourself lose balance, I'm going to pause. And then I'm pushing through the floor like a step up and coming back up. A common mistake I see is this rear free leg swinging, and then I'm standing up with two legs. I want to make sure that I finish this leg. So I'm going to exaggerate here. I'm going to finish, then I put this leg down. So I'm staying up straight on my working leg, then this leg, the free leg, can touch down. One more time. So I'm going to descend slowly with tension. I like a little pause to make sure I'm balanced, and then come back up. The reason for the pause is if you feel like you're losing your balance in between the transition. So if I come down here and I'm losing it and I want to come back up quick, we got to try to eliminate that. I want to be smooth throughout the motion with constant balance, little pause, and then drive up. Lastly, a little bit of weight is a good thing because it helps facilitate the movement. When we're bringing our leg way out, we're counterbalancing with that weight in front of us to maintain our own balance, much like, a seesaw or a scale. But I don't want you to use weight as a crutch. Yes, you can go up in weight pretty well with this one because it doesn't put stress on the joints the way other exercises do, like we talked about earlier on the knee and the back. But if you cannot do this movement without a weight in your hand, you should be able to do it without a weight in your hand, was what I'm trying to say. So practice maybe a couple before you add the weight to see if you can hinge at the hip, balance, and then come back. If you can't do that, maybe you should focus on that a little bit too, and then add the weight to increase the strength and the stability. So I want to thank you for watching this video. If you like it, please like it down below. Also subscribe, as we try to put a video out every week. Also, if you have topics, put them in the comments box. I'll try to help make videos on what you want to see and tips you need help with. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.